I mean,
out of the following thing, I am a mathematician. I love mathematics. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, been in Boulder, Colorado, and a few places, and I love science. But I always was aware of where I belonged, and I belonged to Colombia, and I knew that I had to go back to my country because I had been a privileged person, and that's on a personal side, and I knew that in order to have a fair society, all those things that for me were a privilege should be a right for every single one in a country. So I knew that. Now, I belong to that group of people who disliked politics too much, but we were concerned about what happened in society. And after too many years, each one of us individually trying to improve society, we realized something that is very simple. Whether we like them or not, politicians are the ones who make the most important decision in our society. We may spend the rest of our lives saying how things should be, but we would have to wait to see what they did. So 11 years and a half ago, with a small group of people that I led, we said, I'm not going to die watching this thing. We are going to get into power. We are going to go there, and we are going to show how things are actually done. So it came out of conviction principles, somehow rebels against what happening, and it changed my life, and I said, well, goodbye my tenure position, goodbye mathematics in the sense of doing it daily, but I do mathematics every single day in a different context, but that's it.
Well, let me ask you a mathematical question. At the peak of violence in Medellin 20 years ago, 1 out of every 250 people a year were being killed. Some enormous, the homicide rate was enormous. That was reduced, and during your term, was down to more than 90% reduction. Now, I'm sure that much of what you did helped rode that wave, but what did you do beyond building that and many other extraordinarily beautiful places in the poor neighborhoods? What did you do in those 4 years to reduce this incredibly entrenched narco violence?
Medellin has gone through, as Colombia, has gone through very different stages associated with narco traffic. Let me say a few words about narco traffic. I don't like to talk about it in the sense that I say poor guys, poor people. No, we are very proud people, very capable as anyone in the world. We have all the talent, so I never like to use the difficult situation to elicit a response. Poor me. No, we are not poor. In the sense that Medellin is a very resilient city. We are, Colombians, very resilient. So narco traffic has changed through the years. The violence right now in Colombia is increasing, and in Medellin is increasing. Now, but narco traffic has the highest power of destruction, which is those persons who got a price, they will find it. They have enough money to buy anyone who has a price. And whoever will stop them, they will destroy physically.
Which was going to be my next question. Why didn't they kill you?
Because first, the situation in Medellin and in Colombia was different. By the time we got there physically, I walked throughout the city always with bodyguards, without bodyguards, and I guess because I have a very special power, which is being transparent. What we did in public, we said in private. We never had a dealing with anyone, even though they will try to say that we had. But we had the power of ingenuity, the power of conviction, of passion, of love what we were doing. We didn't single a person to say, we have to get this guy. I will describe what was wrong. And everyone could make the conclusion in their mind so that we changed the way we communicated with people, we were in touch with people, and we weren't a threat in the sense that we use words to attack in the traditional sense. We use concepts, we build new things, we change people, and that has been our power. That's why I haven't been killed, and actually, as a matter of fact, I had never thought about that.
Sorry to bring it up.
John Fetterman, the chart you showed of the reduction in police calls just over your years in office is extraordinary in its demonstration that even these long-term social projects can have fairly short-term, near-term effects. As I was looking in the last few days at the crime rates in Braddock, though, it is not as crime-ridden as one would expect. I mean, given that it's a very poor place, it's not that crime-ridden. Why is that?
Well, because they have a great mayor. But seriously, I just think it's a factor of a lot of things. From my perspective, having a great police chief is probably the most important thing. A community as poor and small as we do rely on partnering with state, county, and even federal agencies in order to conduct certain operations. There's some people that no matter what you do will never play along, never get along, get on the bandwagon, and those individuals that are really hurting the quality of life for the city need to go away, and there's no way to sugarcoat that. On the flip side of that, with respects to violence, and particularly from a Colombian perspective, and I could never influence this, but I think the country needs to increasingly begin to consider decriminalizing drugs, because that's the source of a lot of violence in our communities. And we in this country are immune to the effects that it has on countries like Colombia or like Mexico, where a lot of this violence takes place. So we've been very fortunate. I've never had an attempt on my life, but it's always possible. I don't have a security guard or anything like that. But as my colleague said, it's just important to be out there. Everyone knows, I'm not hard to find,
And with 2,100 people, you probably know everybody.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So it's a proud place. A lot of places, it's a place that a lot of people have written off, and we're coming back. But public safety underpins everything that you do in a city. Without public safety, everything else is lost, because no one's going to invest, no one's going to move, no one's going to start a family in a town where perception or reality that they're not safe. And the other component of homicide, and I'll be brief, is you'd be surprised, particularly, like I guarantee you, when we find out what caused this afternoon shooting in my town, it was probably over something incredibly minor, just a minor spat that, when I was a kid, you might take it outside and duke it out, and now this individual had a .45 caliber pistol and shot 3 rounds, in broad daylight at a 15-year-old. So, that level, we got to ratchet that down here in this country, and of what's acceptable and what isn't. And as Mayor Nutter pointed out, most of Pennsylvania loves guns. In fact, Pittsburgh had the NRA convention there, and it was backed up traffic, the entire time. So we're not getting rid of guns anytime soon in Pennsylvania. So what can we do as mayors in order to, in that environment, to make it a safer place?
Greg Nichols, I don't want to suggest that there is no crime in Seattle, but I do want to move to issues of the environment and sustainability. You mentioned your initiatives to limit sprawl, to build higher, denser, which are profound and necessary, obviously. As I was amazed at how many initiatives you did. I mean, that you were not simply branding yourself as green, but you got light rail going, you created more bike lanes, you helped establish 2,400 charging stations for electric cars, doubled recycling rates, created green roofs, and so on and on and on and on. Did this become, after the recession of 2001 ended, did this become your main animating vision, reason for being in politics?
Well, no, as I said at the start of my remarks, I am best known outside of Seattle for the work that I did on climate. But we had a very specific agenda that I brought into office with me, and that was to provide economic opportunity for the people of the city, to make sure our neighborhoods were safe, to create a place that people wanted to be, healthy families and strong communities. And so when you're mayor, you really, there's an intimate relationship with the people of your city, because what you do affects them in their homes. Unlike a governor or a president, what you do affects them at home. So I'll give you one example. We started a composting program. We've been a leader in recycling for many, many years. And we decided that we needed to take it to the next level. And so now you have a way to be able to put your food waste into a central composting system. This means that everybody in the city now has this little container in their kitchen where they put the leftover vegetables and meat and salmon. We eat a lot of salmon out there. And that summer, there were a lot of fruit flies in a lot of kitchens. So I became the fruit fly mayor for a short period of time until we figured out how you use apple cider vinegar to do away with them. So there's an intimate relationship there, and you affect every aspect of people's lives. What the climate issue did for us was it brought together a lot of things that we were already doing in recycling, in energy conservation, in water conservation, and it gave us purpose. So it wasn't just symbolic, good, random acts of goodness you were doing. There was a reason for it, and that was this compelling and overarching challenge that we face.
One of the political problems, from my reading, it seems, was larger as blowback from an environmental good intentions. You had a big, gigantic snowstorm a couple years ago. You went along with the established rule of no salt on the streets. People blamed you for that until the end, did they not?
Well, yes, they did. You know, I will say, though, that the reason that people blamed me for the snow and the inability to clean it up were a couple of reasons. One, mayors get blamed more often than they deserve, and we get credit, frankly, more often than we deserve. But secondly, we had just gone through the biggest credit crisis in the history of our country. And people were feeling their 401ks disappearing, their jobs disappearing, their pensions going away. And there was a visceral anger below the surface that just happened to manifest itself in a snowstorm that we had a few months later.
And unlike our mayor, you didn't have $80 million to get yourself elected to a third term.
Well, he had 102 million.
Yeah.
If it had been only 80, maybe we could have done something. Yeah.
Mayor Nutter, you mentioned your Greenworks program, which is very impressive.
Thank
You
you.
should all look at the website. You have these specific initiatives where you are graded. I guess I assume some outside entity grades you, or are you grading yourself on how well you're performing on each of these 14 metrics?
We create ourselves.
Oh, sorry. Well, and in some of them you're doing well. I see.
We better be.
In the reducing greenhouse gas metric, and in the more trees in the city, you're doing well. Not so good in infrastructure repair, landfill alternatives, retrofitting apartments, local foods and parks. But it's fascinating to me that you have actually, instead of just having high-minded, oh, let's be a green city,
Yeah.
you're holding yourself responsible with these 14 quantifiable measures.
Yes, I mean, the part of this is about, these are all measurable. I mean, regardless of who's doing the measurement. I mean, if we say we're going to plant 300,000 trees, I mean, you either did it or you didn't. I mean, as again, Mayor Nichols said, I mean, the great thing about local government is most of what we do actually is measurable. You can see it. It's instantaneous. If we have a meeting, my Chief Cultural Officer is here, Gary Stoyer. So, you know, we had a poetry reading by a very well-known poet who's from Philadelphia, Sonia Sanchez. You know, does work all over the country. Well, she was in on Tuesday night, and we've been talking about this for a little bit. I decided to announce on Tuesday night that we're going to create a Poet Laureate program for Philadelphia. And we put out a press release two days later. We're going to have a Poet Laureate program in Philadelphia because I decided that that's what I want to do. And, you know, and now we'll have one. So